This is Marketing Heroes Unfiltered, the journey to CMO, the podcast where we interview high-achieving B2B marketing professionals to know their stories, struggles, and insights in this fast-paced and competitive industry. Hosted by Leslie Carruthers and Danny Muscaplat. Welcome, Suzanne. Thank you for being here today. This is a podcast about heroes. And we start off with the first question is, how do you start your day?
I have a practice of waking up and starting with a devotional. And I am actually battling breast cancer right now, so I start my day with a cancer devotional that a friend gave me. That's a great way to kind of level set my day and put everything in perspective. Probably a little different than what you hear from most people. But that is truly how I start my day right now.
Well, yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that.
No, it's all good. I'm going to end up I'm fighting it, and it's hopefully not obvious to anyone. That was my goal, to be, quote, normal, which we chuckle amongst my family members of what does normal's relative, right? But normal to me means that I go about and that no one knows what's going on. So that's how I start my day. And, then it goes into the normal things of exercise and getting ready. And I have a whole routine of packaging up my lunch and what I'm going to do for the day and then head out the door. So.
Well, I acknowledge you for giving yourself what you need. Yeah. And our thoughts and prayers are with you, sending love and light.
That's all I need. And yeah. I was going to ask when the hero was going to join the podcast.
That would be you.
Well, I think you made it very clear that it's you. And, for what it's worth, I certainly wouldn't have known. I don't think Leslie would have known. You show up brave and courageous and ready to work. So, you're doing what you wanted to do, being normal.
Well, and I think I represent, unfortunately, millions of women who are going through the same thing. So.
Yeah, my wife went through it several years ago.
Oh,
so we are very familiar with the process.
Very, very, yeah. It's amazing. It's a great community. Another community.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It is. You find out that there's a whole world there to support you, and I've got all the faith that you're going to crush it. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. So we always follow that question with the same one, and this one might have a unique flavor for you, Suzanne, given what you just shared, but you're very accomplished in your career, and it's one of the reasons why we wanted to speak with you. Every hero has an origin story. Can you tell us a little bit about how you became the Suzanne that you are today?
So I do think my story is not unusual or different in that, just a very traditional upbringing, other than I had a grandfather that probably boosted my confidence and believed in me a little more than maybe some other young girls, and encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to do. So, they could have wanted to be an astronaut or anything, and he would have encouraged it and was very supportive. And I had a father who was the same, but we moved every 2 years. And so as a true introvert, I was forced to become an extrovert. So I think in many ways that really is my journey, because if you think about really good marketers, typically we're the ones that have to kind of be up front. I do not like to be up front. I would really rather be behind the back curtain, a little bit like the Oz, right? And, work the magic and then let other people, kind of feel like it is magic and see it happening. And I think my upbringing of moving every 2 years and having to kind of make sure that I almost had to reinvent myself you can imagine, as a teenager moving and all of those things. It sounds horrible when I tell people, they go, oh my gosh, that was awful. But really it wasn't, because I think it gave me the opportunity to really explore who I was in many different ways at many different times in my life. And I always had my family. That was my constant. And my grandfather, who really encouraged me. And so I think that's the origin of, and if you think, I tag it back into marketing, which is really kind of comical because I didn't even get into marketing until a little later in my career. But I really do think it was a lead into why I enjoy marketing and why I have kind of gotten to the level where I have. And it's all about learning and evolving and growing. And that started really, my entire childhood was all about that.
That's great. I got a follow-up question for you on that one. I've had people on my team, even very recently, who are very similar to what you're describing, very introverted, would love to, do the work and kind of necessarily be in the background, but be the behind the scenes, maybe a little bit more thoughtful, strategic. And it's been a bit of a career blocker for them. Or in some cases, maybe they perceive it as a career blocker, but how do you grow your career if you're not out on the front lines? And it's been a struggle for me as a leader to kind of coach and develop them, because my gut tells me, get out in front of people, do a presentation, give a speech, make yourself known. I'd love to know what advice you would have for people like that on how you make your way in a world that is predominantly about, having a big vocal presence when it's not required.
Well, you have some great champions around you, which I've been very blessed to have that. And you be champions for those people. So the ones you talked about on your team, Danny, I think you encouraging them and you championing them. Sometimes I think it's been said, right, when if I say something's great and we need to do it as a marketer, it's perceived one way. But if I get another leader to say something's great and we need to do it, it takes on a whole nother level. I promote this. I've always promoted this in every role I've ever been in. I have no good ideas. I help others come up with great ideas. And so I do believe that, because I think it fosters that collaborative spirit. I think it also, we talked about this when we first met. I don't speak just to speak. I try to be very thoughtful. And so in the words that I do bring out, I try to make sure that it's meaningful, it has relevance, it's impactful. So I might not say a whole lot, but when I do say something, I believe people pay attention because it is meaningful. And I do think there's something to be said for that. I think sometimes, especially in the marketing world, we can sometimes get a little wordy or a little flowery. And as the roles I've taken on, that's something I've always asked my team to be very thoughtful about ideas and what they're doing, and that it may be a great idea, but you really have to bring others along. And I think that partnership and that collaboration, whether it's a champion or a mentor or a leader. So in your case, Danny, as you're leading your team, you can be the champion for them and be the voice for them, and then bring them along. I think that gives them that confidence too when they see others, and they see others responding to their ideas, even when they don't directly say them. Yeah. People helps them over a little bit of that imposter phenomenon.
It's so great to see different people do it different ways. It's still achieving these levels of vice president of marketing, CMO, as you are, Suzanne, at a very large organization, and it works. There isn't just one way you have to be.
I think that's exactly right, and we talk about that a lot here at LBMC. In the business development roles, we'll have people say, I can't do that. How do I do that? I can't do that. That person's, they're very verbose. They're always out. They're always at events. People gravitate to them. And, the thought is that not everyone gravitates to the exact same personalities, though. And so our thought is you can be very successful in any role you have if it's authentic and it works for you. And I think that's the key for everybody. So for those ones that feel introverted, I think they need to find that path and niche. And for them, it may not be in a startup. It may be in a larger organization where they can fit in as a group instead of being that one-man show, if you will. So they don't have to exhibit so much of the extrovert characteristics, and that they're very valued as the part of the collaboration in the team.
I'd like to ask a similar question, but slightly different. Suzanne, what were the 3 things that you can see now, looking back, whether habits or decisions or events that put you on track to be where you are now?
So the 3 habits, or probably mantras maybe I've always said, is no experience is ever a bad experience. Always learning. I get bored somewhat easily, so I have to always be learning. And then I think the 3rd is it's okay to take risks, and it's okay to fail. And I think you hear that more these days than you used to. But when I was coming out, that was not always the case. It was, you're taking a risk that could hurt your career, or you're taking a little different direction. And I've mentored quite a few young women through some colleges here in Nashville. And many times their question to me is, what's one thing you would want to tell me that you didn't realize early in your career that might help me? And my first comment to them is, your career is not always going to be a trajectory up. Most people's careers look a little bit like a swan dive up and down. Because if you are taking risks or you are evolving and learning, you're going to get to your pinnacle, and then you're going to kind of come back down again, and then you're going to kind of, and if you're taking risks, you don't want to see those downs, but sometimes some of those downs are your best learning opportunities. Some of the best opportunities I've had, I might not consider them a failure, but maybe they weren't my best, but I think about the experience and the learning that I was able to take away, and how I acted through those experiences too. I think also gives you a different reputation in the workplace, right? It's we can all be fundamentally mighty, great people when things are successful and good. When things are tough and not perfect, I think we all take on sometimes a little different personality, and so I think that can give you some additional experience and learnings.
I love that. I used to say the person you are on the bad day is more emblematic of the person you are on a good day, right? You
Absolutely.
show your true colors.
Absolutely.
I do have a follow-up though, again, for selfish reasons, because we also have a learning mindset, freedom to fail mantra on my team. But we struggle with it because we're also a business and we have to hit
Right.
targets. And I'm wondering how you've been able to reconcile, we got to hit the target, we got to make the money, but we also can fail because failure could mean we don't hit those numbers.
I think that goes back to your fundamentals, and you've got to keep those kind of going. But there should always be room. And I think you talk to a lot of marketers these days, and they'll tell you, I've always got a little bit of room or a little bit of budget for that test, that risk, or that thing that I'm just not quite sure about, but I think if I can get it to work might really kind of set us apart. And you have to be willing to kind of work a little harder and kind of I've got my foundational things going, but I'm going to spend a little extra time on this, to get it moving. And, for LBMC, I'll give an example here. When I first came on board, there wasn't a lot of LBMC curated kind of content, if you will. And so in the first year, I kind of I said two things. I felt like one, we needed kind of an LBMC curated event that was pretty large, bigger scale, much more about talking to prospects as well as clients. And then I also wanted to have some type of pillar content that we could use year after year consistently that could make our experts look really forward thinking and very advisory oriented. And so I kind of took on those two. I got a little bit of approval, but I also said, I'm not sure what the results of these are going to be. I'm new to LBMC, I'm new to this industry, but what I believe is I think we're going to be able to kind of take these and step forward from these, and they're going to be a really nice addition to some other things you all are already doing. And I think it will extend our brand a little further, give us a little bit more depth in the marketplace from an expert perspective. So telling them, I think on the front end, I'm not sure. Some people would probably be like, why did you do that? Well, again, sometimes my authentic is being as transparent as possible. Someone else might not feel comfortable with that. But I was able to say, here's what I think it's going to be. Here's how much time I think it's going to be. It's new. And, that first year was a real dig to get some of those things done because it wasn't in the plan. I didn't really have the extra staff, if you will, to do some of those things. But we did it, and it was a huge success immediately. Now I'm going to pat my team on the back. I'm not patting myself on the back, but I could have said, I'm not going to try those things because it's kind of risky and it's going to require some more time. But I do think now looking back, that was a good way to kind of create some trust. So the next time I went and said, I'm not sure what this will do, but I would like to try it. I got a little different reaction of, okay, we're willing to go. But again, I think those are things you work with your leadership team, you work with your team. Your team's kind of probably got to have a little bit of excitement maybe around it and thinking that we are going to feel really good if this works. You need to know what your business outcomes are going to be. We always have very clear business outcomes for everything we do. And I think having those things in place can help you do some of those risk things with a little less risk, right? People don't feel like this is so risky that I'm going to lose my job if it doesn't work out. I think, again, those are the kinds of things that maybe me as a leader ought to take on, but I shouldn't involve my team, would maybe be how I would position that part.
Good idea.
Does that help? Does that answer? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's a great answer.
Freedom
Thank you.
to Fail Fund. Awesome.
That's
So,
right. Exactly.
Suzanne, is there some gnarly problem that you've dealt
Exactly.
with in the recent past, and or even further back, that you were able to solve, got creative with, or proud of, that you could share that might help someone else facing something similar, or it's on the horizon?
Oh gosh, I'm sure I have thousands. I can't think of a like one specific problem, but I can think of an overarching problem I think we have in just in marketing in general, and probably not just in marketing, but you hear about it the most in the marketing realm. As you know, many times our thoughts, some of our projects, if they can't be tied directly back to revenue, we kind of get earmarked as fluffy or not necessary or not essential, if you will. And so, over my career, that's been one thing that, I continually battle. I kind of take it a badge of honor, though, that I have to battle it. I mean, I'm ready. My armor's ready because I feel like we we still need to work on how we want to position marketing to our leaders when they don't understand marketing. And so I think it gives us a great opportunity to really sell that and really pull it through. And so my stance that I have taken on that is one, first of all, the very first thing as marketers we have to understand is the business. We cannot explain things to people in marketing terms. We've really got to explain it to them in business terms. What does this mean for the business? Why do I want to do this? Why do they want me to do this? Why is it a good use of our resources and our time and our money? And then I think the second piece is that kind of creating that trust collaborative factor. And a little bit of this goes back to my idea earlier that I don't have any great ideas, that they're always someone else's. And so I do think, I really do think there's something to be said for that, because I think bringing along leaders and helping them to feel like they're part of it, and then you being able to speak back to it in a business acumen sense, starts to create that credibility. So even when there are things that, as a marketer we consider fun but necessary, some of those great brand projects where you just know you need to get out there. What if Coke had decided they weren't going to do any branding, right? What would Coke be Coke? No, but that's hard to explain, especially in my world, financial services and professional services. But those are fundamentals to me. And so I think the battle that I continue to face, and that monster that we face, is turning that brand conversation into why we have to do it from a business acumen. And what I typically have you leaned on with that is, it's really hard to make connections and relationships with individuals and talk about our company when we're not a known commodity,
Mm.
or we're not visible, or we aren't credible in the marketplace. And so to me, I turn that brand conversation into the brand is a foundational piece we just have to have in our business that's based on trust and expertise and our people. And so to me, that's where I think, every business has to play that up. Obviously, if you're a SaaS company, or you're a consumer goods company, there's a different. But in my world, we're selling our people and their expertise and the trust. And it's financial services, professional services. You're talking about people's money and livelihoods, and so it's very important. And so again, turning in a marketing fundamental, turning it into a business, basically a business necessity, if you will, I think I've found is very helpful. And I don't think it's a one and done. I don't think it's something you can come in and show a PowerPoint on and say you must do this. I think it is that collaboration amongst the leadership and the continuous education. And I've been laughed at before because I've actually used the terms, I'm going to act like a parent, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I just told you, and then I'm going to tell you again, and then I'm going to remind you and remind you and remind you. And so I do think, as leaders, as business people, we have a lot going on, and I think marketers' role is to do that, to act a little bit like a parent and remind and tell and retell And we do that with our clients too, right? In a noisy world, we've got to do the same thing.
That's great. Thank you. So one of the next questions that we like to ask is, it really stems from two things. One is what people like me tend to struggle with in our roles, but the other is what Leslie tends to hear from her customers really all over the world. And is that there are some key problems that seem to recur, whether it's staffing or retention, time to results, bandwidth, how do we do digital transformation? Wondering if you could share if any of those are your problems, and if so, how do you overcome them, or what other problems that you might be dealing with?
I think unfortunately we all suffer from staffing and team. I've been very blessed in that I've got a really solid team, great, yeah, a great team. I've been blessed with that everywhere I've been. That's something I pride myself on, is bringing in, strong people. And I don't always look for marketers. I kind of look for a diverse mixture, and then we train, and we work together. What I think that does is it gives, just like we talk about in the world, a diversity of thought, a diversity of ideas, a diversity of opinions, and then I allow them to do their jobs based on what we need. And so I think that helps for healthy retention, if you will, because I think they feel like they're part of the process. But I think that then leads to, then that can create other issues that can kind of follow along, that make it a little more challenging, in that maybe we're not as edge on the edge, if you will, for technology, or maybe we don't have every single marketing bell and whistle, if you will, that maybe some others have. And so one of my biggest mantras to the team is, we're going to do the fundamentals, the basics, really, really well. And once we have those things done really, really well, then we're going to start stacking on the additional pieces that we know we need to do. Which means we've got to understand really, really well what our business imperatives are. And then we need to understand where marketing can create that incremental lift. And so I think from that perspective, you start to now talk about, in today's world, it's, what is that? Digital transformation. Is it the new, the new technology? Is it chat GPT? Is it, search engine? Is it a new website? Is it digital transformation? Where is that next level? And I'm sure you all know better than I do, there's so many options these days. Knowing which one is going to get you to where you need to go. And so I kind of make that a little bit of a development opportunity for my team, that they can then look to see, where do they think we will get our biggest lift, and kind of make those business cases. And that gives them an opportunity to learn. The rest of the team also learns a little bit. And then we can kind of decide, we've got our fundamentals and our basics running really well. We can do a little bit of testing. Okay, we're going to add this on, and do we get an incremental lift? And I think what we have found is, we've run across some things, they don't necessarily give us what we're looking for. I wouldn't call it a fail, but I wouldn't call it something we want to continue. I think that knowing those things, I hear a lot of marketers talk about, they have a huge list of things they're going to do. And I really feel like that's where marketers get tripped up, is when they have too much on their plate. They're not doing the fundamentals well, and then the incrementals are probably not getting executed well. Or even if they are getting executed well, they may not even be able to tell what they're really adding to, because they don't have the sound fundamentals. And, we all know you can chase yourself around quite a bit if you don't have control over what you're doing. And so to me, those are evergreen challenges. I don't see many of those ever going away, but I feel like today, the volume and the pace at which those are coming at us have probably sped up just in the last 5 years, tenfold. Just so many unique, great opportunities. The question just is, which ones are relevant for my business goals and objectives? Again, we know the fundamentals we have to do, but what are those next level things that we need to do? I don't know if that answers. Staffing obviously is always for everyone. I'm sure that'll continue to be for the next couple of years.
Speaking of staffing and teams, what advice would you share? You mentioned that you mentor a lot of young people, and especially young women in marketing, all the Vanderbilt, all the great universities there in Nashville, around Nashville. I think you've mentioned that one in particular. But what advice do you have for the next generation of marketers?
Oh gosh. Well, what I would say, I think continue to hear that marketing is becoming more and more in the business, which I'm really excited to hear. It's really much more instrumental in driving companies forward. You're seeing CEOs, go to their marketing, leads, going to their CMOs, some of them are even becoming CEOs now, and that it is becoming a much more a business necessity. So I would say, for the up and coming as they get in, I mentioned earlier, first of all, your career is not a straight up trajectory. Making sure any company that you head into that you understand the business fundamentals. It's great if you can talk marketing speak and you understand social and you understand, open rates and emails, and you can talk about several marketing tools. But if you don't understand how those things are driving the business and you're only able to spout out those statistics, it's going to fall on deaf ears. And so you've got to be able to connect the dots between the marketing activity and the business result. So to me, that would be my number one thought. And that doesn't always happen day one, but, make sure you're aligning yourself with the business people that will help you do that. And if you're asking those questions, they will be more than happy to help you do that, because they will see that you're trying to understand how marketing truly can be that business driver that they're meant to be.
We'll edit this out, but we typically don't ask the following question, but I want to give it a try. I think we've had it on our list for several recordings and we've never quite done it, but I want to ask you because I like your transparency and candor. So here's the question. As you look back at your career, is there anything that you can identify that you would have done differently?
Great question. Is there anything I would have done differently? I think if you ask me, did I take risks earlier in my career? I would say yes. But as I get older and I look back on my career, I think, did I take enough? Should I have taken a few more risks? Should I have been okay with thinking, this might really go really bad, but maybe it could have gone really well too? And I think early in your career, you're a little more cautious. I was willing to take risks by switching roles and taking on roles that I wasn't 100% sure I could do, but I wasn't always willing to do the risk of going to the table early in my career, as probably to be expected, to say, this is a really good idea and we really do need to do it. So I think, maybe we all, as we get older, we look back and we think, you never say, I wished I hadn't have done that. I think most people say, I wished I had done more. So I guess risk, maybe take a few more risks. I have had a few good ideas that maybe other people have taken credit for later that I'm totally fine with, but I wonder if early in my career, if I'd pushed myself a little bit more, I could have had some life-altering ideas, if you will.
Yeah. Thanks for throwing it out there, Danny.
That's a great answer. I like that one.
So I'd like to ask you about the economic situation, like what's going on now. A lot of people are saying, Suzanne, that we're headed into a recession for sure. It's this way. What do you think? What do you see? I know you've, well, yeah. What do you see?
Well, the first thing I would say to that is, I've been through 3 major financial downturns in my career. I think that's enough for one person personally. So I'm going to base my answer on no more financial. However, just based on, if you look at the law of economics and the financial markets and where we've been for the last 10 to 12 years since the major downturn that we saw in 2008, many people would say we're due and we're going to have one. I think the question just is how proliferating it's going to be across industries and where it's going to actually hit. Is it going to be, last time it was very much the housing market and the banking and financials. This time I think some people are predicting it may be in varying other areas. I think we will have a slowdown, but I think we're probably due. We've been at, buster double-digit rates for so long now. I think the fundamental companies and the fundamental organizations are not going to see a recessionary downtimes like what we saw in the 2008s and the 2010s. I think many times when companies hear those things in the media, of course, one day it's we're all on for a recession and the next day it's no, we're going to avoid it. And then the next day it's, oh, we think it is coming and it'll be here, later this month in the markets. So, whoever gets that answer right, I guess, is the winning ticket. But to me, one, it shouldn't matter. If your fundamentals are sound, they're sound. And as a marketer, I think that, you kind of have to chuckle at that a little bit, because typically when I went through those three major financial crises, the first ones to be cut from the businesses were the marketing teams, right? We were extra. We were not necessities. We were not critical to the business. I think that thinking has most definitely changed as we go forward. I think if we learned nothing during the COVID period, it was that consumers are buying different and the marketers are the only ones who know that. So you got to have them on, right? And so I think we've created a great space that we truly do represent that client buying power, which is what keeps the businesses going. But I think the marketers who are positioning themselves, again, they have foundationally laid that groundwork at their companies. They're in the business. They understand the business. They're looking out, and I would tell you, I'm probably not going to be testing a whole lot of new things right now. I'm sticking to what we know works. We're being solid. We're focused on, doubling down on great results. And again, not testing and not trying anything really new. So as a marketer, it's your role to really be in tune to your businesses. If you're with a business that's strapped for cash, you're a startup, or you're in acquisition mode, or wherever you are, understand that and understand where your role is in that, so that you're not going to get yourself in a position where they're looking and saying you've overextended with the marketing aspect and we are hitting slower times. And again, I think if you're kind of in those industries, right? If we start to have a commercial real estate issue and you're in commercial real estate, to kind of pull back a little bit, right? So you don't want them coming to you and saying you've got to cut. You've already started to look where you can make sure that you're shoring up, that your business impacting items are still on board. And that's what you're pushing forward, right? You're not hiring gangbusters. You're not adding additional ads. You're being smart about your
with the business. Great.
Absolutely. It is the partnership. I think the marketers that have figured that out, I know there's a trend. We continue that. I can't remember what the percentage is these days, but it continues to talk about how the marketers turn over so much quicker. And I used to argue, is it because of the companies or because of the marketers? I think you need to understand, why they're turning over, because in my mind, that wasn't always necessarily a bad thing, because it could just mean, they're 10 years short because we get in companies and we realize we've done all we can do and we want to move on to a new challenge. Or it could be we're going into companies and we really don't know what we're doing and we want to get out before. I said, so I've seen it both ways. And I think some companies also churn and burn their marketers sometimes a little bit too hard because they don't really understand what marketing needs to do for them. And there's not a partnership.
No, that's a lot.
Leslie, we've only got a few minutes left. Do you want to do burning topic or speed round?
Yeah, so I think that we can go straight to the speed round. Are you ready, Suzanne? And you don't have to be fast. Great. You can be slow. But this is just a place to have a little fun. Yeah, you want to?
We'll edit it to make it seem super rapid fire. All right, I'm going to go first. So rapid fire questions. Here we go. Speed round. If your career was a movie, who plays you?
Reese Witherspoon.
Nice.
What's your favorite KPI?
Profit.
Good one.
Okay, first job, worst job.
First job, I was a credit analyst in a regional bank. Worst job, I was a credit analyst.
Got it.
In a regional bank.
What's your favorite productivity hack?
Managing email time, blocking it on my calendar.
And people don't double book?
Oh, of course they do. But if I block only certain times on my calendar where I'll try to look at emails.
What's the last book you read?
Oh, gosh. I'm not going to be able to tell you the name. You can see it in my head. I'm actually in a book club, so I read a book a month. Now, I'll tell you my next one. How about that? Never Say Sale.
Sure.
What's it again?
Sitting on my desk. I'm getting ready to start reading it.
Never Say Sale?
Never Say Sale, as in SALE.
Who's the most fascinating contact on your phone?
Oh, gosh. Fascinating. Well, funny story. My son actually went to high school with Luke Bryan's nephew. So I did have Luke Bryan's number on my phone for a while.
If you could be famous for one thing, what would it be?
My humor.
Yeah?
I'd like to be
That's
famous.
Great. Because you would like to have a sense of humor, because you do have a sense of humor and you would like to be known for it.
I think I have a sense of humor. My family doesn't think I'm that funny. But I would like to have that, yeah.
I can relate.
Okay. What's the best compliment you've ever gotten?
I was told by a leader here that I did not speak unless I had something thoughtful to say. And so he felt like every time I said something, people should listen. I thought that was a huge compliment. Huge compliment.
That is great.
I think I told y'all that some of my counsel I've given to some of the young girls is you hear a lot of times, speak in every meeting. Make sure you at least speak and say something and do something. And I worry about that advice across the board. I get the premise, and I agree. If you have a comment, speak up. But to me, to just talk to be talking, I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice.
I agree 1,000,000%. Is there something that you've always dreamed of doing but haven't done?
Yes, I would love to be a country music singer.
Really?
Yes.
Can you sing? Can you play guitar or
I
anything?
can do nothing. My daughter is very, very talented, and I was hoping she was going to live my life out for me, but she stopped. My daughter and my son and my husband actually can all learn instruments by ear. I played piano when I was younger.
Did you see both of our jaws drop? That's amazing. We were like, oh, best dream ever.
And it's funny that I'm in Nashville, but I have been a country music fan my whole life. My father was. And so I listened to Grand Ole Opry before we even moved anywhere near Nashville. And so huge thing. Yeah. I actually have converted my family. They're all country music fans now too.
All right, one last question.
Oh, that's great.
Describe yourself in 5 words, please.
Patient, introvert, chocolate loving gal. Because I can't say
Awesome.
mom, friend, wife.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Is there anything that we didn't ask you
great.
that you'd like us to? Anything that Lisa's going to be upset if we don't get in?
That's what I'm looking at. Yeah. No, just that, well, maybe just one statement on getting, everyone wants to talk about getting to the table, being at the leadership table and having that. I think that's very important. But I think the more important piece of that is just being able to influence the business leaders because you understand. Yeah, it is important to be at the table, but you think about certain organizations. I mean, I'm in an organization where I'm at the leadership table, but maybe if I was at Coke, I might not. But still being able to influence, or, if I was at, Spanx, or if I was at Lululemon, I might not in my role be at that level because the larger organizations you go, there's fewer and fewer people at that table, right? So you just really want to make sure that you're able to influence the business and that you're collaborating with leadership. And to me, that's the more important part. I worry sometimes when people are so focused on getting to the table that becomes the all-encompassing mantra, and they feel like they haven't made it. But if you're influencing the business, you could be sitting on the bench, if you will. It's really about influencing them.
It's a great closing thought. Thank you for this. What a blast.
Oh, well, thank y'all. I hope it benefits you, and I will make sure that I definitely.
Thank you. No, appreciate that. And we'll make sure it benefits you also, and Lisa will support us in that. I know that much.
Help you all and let me know what I can do, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
We appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
And hey, good luck on your journey. I'm sure it's going to be a successful one, but we'll be thinking about you for sure.
Thank you. I'm halfway through, so just 9 more weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Good. You got this.
I do have it. I've got it. Got it.
All right.
So I've got way too many things to do. I don't have time to.
That's right. No, I love it. All right.
Thank y'all.
Thanks again.
To meet you,
You take care.
Yeah.
Thank you for staying tuned. If you're enjoying these conversations, we would so appreciate if you would subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us to increase the podcast's reach. Thank you. See you next week with more inspiring stories. This episode of Marketing Heroes is brought to you by The Search Guru, produced by Circle Audio, and podcast cover art by Andra Lazord.